You're listening to Fit Pro Sessions with Parallel Coaching, episode number 16. Hi, I'm Neil Bergman, and in today's podcast, I'm joined by Bob Hope as we explore the secret sauce behind planning and delivering circuit training. So stay tuned. And whilst I've got your attention, if you're enjoying the Fit Pro Sessions, please do head over and leave us a 5-star shiny review.
Hi, I'm Neil Bergman.
And I'm Hayley Bergman. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands of fitness professionals to get qualified, learn with simplicity, and coach clients with confidence.
We're the first to say that learning and being a fit pro doesn't have to be hard work, and that with the right structure, support and resources, you can become a confident and knowledgeable fitness professional that is dedicated to more.
So how do you learn, qualify and kickstart as a fit pro? This is the Fit Pro Sessions podcast with Parallel Coaching.
A massive warm welcome to the one and only Mr. Bob Hope. Welcome to Fit Pro Sessions, Bob.
Thank you very much for having me.
And let's jump straight in, because I know a number of our learners know quite a bit about you because they've got your book. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see that we've got the books in front of us. Bob's an author of 2 circuit books. But Bob, do an intro to yourself. Who is Bob Hope?
A thumbnail sketch of my life is I first qualified as an instructor in 1972 when I became a Royal Naval Physical Training instructor. Then for the next 25 years, I was constantly instructing fitness and sport throughout the world on both land and sea. Job being to keep sailors fit, and when we're ashore, keeping sailors and their families fit. So those days, there wasn't the kind of industry we have now as far as you've got all these fancy gyms. It was just a sports hall and keep your sailors fit. From there, I ended up becoming the chief instructor of the School of Physical Training, where I first got into the instructing role, the tutoring role as it was, and very much looking at what was happening in the civilian world. I decided that it was time that the Navy started getting aligned with what was happening outside. So there was a company out there that did summer courses, 2-week intensive courses up at Loughborough University. So I sent my staff, half of my staff, up there to do this 2-week course and be qualified in a civilian qualification to be instructors. They came down, we changed our program, and they raved about the course. So the next year, which was 86, I think it was, I went up with the rest of my staff to go and do this course. It was lucky then because I kind of got headhunted by this company and asked if I would like to be a tutor. And would I like to work for this company because of my experiences and what they saw in me? So I said, yeah, why not? And I suppose now I've been tutoring for about, in the civilian world, about 32 years. So quite a long time. In that period of time, I often say to students that I'm a mercenary, because if anyone will pay me and they're good enough, I'll come and work for you. So in my heyday, I probably worked for about 5 or 6 different training providers, all delivering the same stuff, but with slightly different songs. And that's what I continue to do today.
Superb. So you've obviously been in fitness for many, many, many years. What was it about fitness that when you went into the services that you diverted into that role? Why fitness and not something else within the Navy?
Well, before I joined, I was already coaching. I was a trampoline coach. And then during my time in the services, I got loads of different coaching qualifications for sports. And on all the courses I did, I noticed that none of them had a fitness part to their coaching. It was all about technique and technical stuff. So I thought there needs to be a lot more in this. So one of the reasons why I thought I'd be a school teacher, but unfortunately I wasn't bright enough to be a school teacher. So the Royal Navy was the next best thing because I like the sea rather than going into the Army or the Air Force. And I looked at how I could become a physical training instructor by going that route. once they got there, I then saw how over time I could start looking at more fitness than the sport. And as a PTI, running sports teams, you could see that, okay, they're pretty good at playing rugby and squash and that, but they're not fit enough to play it for long enough.
Yes.
So we then started devising more fitness for our teams, and then we found that we started winning games because we were fitter.
And
so it just snowballed from there.
I love it. And then you can start obviously applying the principles of training towards specific sports and goals, and seeing how that plays out on the rugby pitch or on the trampoline.
Most definitely, because even if you look now and you look at results of our professional sportsmen and women, you'll find that the fitter they are, then the better they are, and the more gongs they win at the end of the day. And I always remember when Arsene Wenger came over to this country and took over Arsenal Football Club, he really started a revolution within football to make them fitter people. I remember when Clive Woodward took the England rugby team and we won the World Cup. We won it because they were the fittest players out there, without a doubt, and he surrounded himself with fitness people as well as your sociologists and nutritionists, people like that.
Yeah.
But it was the fitness side of things that he drilled into them. And from there now, anyone that wants to be a sports person realistically has to be fit.
Completely. Because at the end of the day, through practicing fitness and becoming fitter, your agility, your balance and your coordination, your bones, joints, tendons, ligaments, they all become faster, fitter, stronger, and
absolutely,
leaner.
Without a doubt.
Which means when you do go onto the pitch or onto the trampoline or whatever sport you're doing, those joints are more robust to go through the technique drills that make the team a better technique.
It does. And if you're going to pay for people to play sport, you want to get your value for money. So therefore, you're not going to have so many people on the physio's table
Yes.
being repaired, because the repair work is done in the prehab rather than the post-hab kind of period. So, and I looked at all this and I thought, well, fitness is the way to go. And when I started, all there was a fitness training course, which was circuit training and weight training, two perfectly blended activities. But over time, the powers that be decided that we would take the circuit training out of the qualification and we would put an aerobic CD part into it, and what we'll call it is a gym instructor award.
Yeah.
And then from there it became a personal training award, because obviously there was a rise in the need to have qualified people doing a one-to-one programming. But they then put circuit training as a CPD, if you like.
Yeah.
And realistically, it's easier to teach cardiovascular training as a CPD and keep circuit training in, because everything we ever do in fitness is based on circuit training.
It's based on a circuit. And when you look back at the ACSM guidelines for health-related exercise, it's 8 to 10 exercises in a circuit formation.
Absolutely. So, we've gone forward, but in point of fact, we've actually gone backwards.
Backwards a little bit.
Because if you look at a lot of the stuff that Dr. Paul Bedford's been doing over the years, people come into the gym and we give them CB machines and weight training, when in fact, it's not what they want to do.
Or what
they
they
might
need.
want to go and play at one of the rigs. They might want to do a circuit round a functional area. But the industry says, no, you've got to have an induction into the CB machines and weight training, because it's not right.
Yeah, completely. For those of you that don't know my journey, I just want to add a little bit. And I actually met Bob back in 2006, 2005, 2006 time. A long time ago, down here in the depths of Cornwall, in St Mellion. And I turned up to do my level 2 gym instructor. I was working at the Plymouth City College at the time, and I walked into this room, and I remember feeling quite daunted, really. I'd come out of uni, I'd done education at uni, but for the first time, this was my first major course outside of training up at university. And I remember walking in and just, I'll be honest, I judged everybody in the room because I thought I've been in my gym a few times. I knew what to do. And literally I just sat there and thought, wow, there's this world of knowledge, this bank of information that I have never been exposed to. I just remember sitting there in awe of you who was teaching it. And I remember rushing home every night to Hayley going, I've just been taught this. I've just learned this. It's just amazing. And you made it sound so straightforward, so simple, yet so scientific, and everything had a reason, a purpose for being there, and it was structured in the most amazing way. And I suppose that's the catalyst of why Hayley and I are here doing what we're doing, 15 odd years later.
Well, I'm glad to have been able to help.
There we go. So yeah,
I remember those days. I remember those days fondly. A nice venue, and there was a nice course. We had nice numbers on it, and yeah, it was brilliant.
And actually, quite a few of them are still active in the industry. I don't know them personally, but I do see them crop up in and around the Southwest still as well. So one of the ladies, the name slipped my mind, but she's still actually working at St. Melion with Steve.
Brilliant. Steve's still there, is he?
He is still there, yeah. We don't bump into each other, even though we're only about 2 or 3 miles away as a crow flies. But he's certainly very active still, definitely.
Good. It was a good lad.
If we segue back then to when you were in the Navy, you mentioned obviously like how we know health clubs and gyms today is very, very different. And obviously your approach is getting sailors fit and ready for purpose to be at sea or on land. What was it like in terms of the type of exercise or the strategy behind planning and delivering that when you haven't got access to kind of today's world as a gym?
Yeah, well, initially on land, you still use the protocol by which Nelson sailors used to work. So there was a lot of rope climbing, a lot of agility stuff over vaulting horses, those type of things, in the process of setting the sails and jumping across the ships to fight other men and things like that. It was basically primed around the circuit training ideals that were set up in the early 50s up in Leeds. And that was a system of training that was perfect for sailors, very versatile. At sea, you had to use your imagination, because when you're on an area about the size of a shooting area in a basketball court, not much bigger,
yeah,
and the ship's rocking around and pitching up and down, and you've got to say, what can I do here? You still use the circuit training, body weight type of exercise to keep them fit. And you have to have a good handle of what exercises can I use. So good vocabulary of different exercises, making sure you're covering the whole body. And it was fun. It brings out, gosh, what can I do here?
Yeah.
What can I do in this small area? Whereas today, you go into a big sports hall or a studio, the world's your oyster, as it were. But you look at people that serve their apprenticeships with real small spaces that are hard to kind of work at. I remember one day I did a circuit for the local council in the Mountbatten Centre in Portsmouth. And I went into the sports hall and I said, yeah, oh, great, I've got a whole sports hall. So we did this grid sprint type circuit. But what I didn't know, that on the court next door, separated by the curtain, was an exercise to music class going on. And the lady liked loud music. So there was me trying to teach a class. I had about 20 people in there while she had, and you kind of think, how am I going to cope with this?
Yeah.
When you've worked on an aircraft carrier with Harriers landing, it's not a problem. So you learn how to adapt and overcome to be able to give your people that are coming a good old workout.
I think
the experiences.
The one thing I always remember you saying, and we say it pretty much on every course, your own creativity and imagination is key. And sometimes when you walk into a gym now, if I go into our local Pure Gym, you've got rigs and platforms and a whole host of kit that I could use. And immediately my brain goes wild with like, I could do this, I could do that.
Yeah.
And there's almost too much option now
Yes.
that allows me, that's maybe forcing people to lose that imagination and creativity. You're crippled by almost too much choice. Whereas having run hundreds of circuits myself for a boot camp I've run down here in Plymouth, I just used a car park, and I literally saw it as an open space. And because there was no distractions with loads of kit, I had to come up with my own way of working and getting, like you say, a whole body approach in an effective way in a short space of time. Whereas when there's loads of kit, what I'm seeing in the industry is people almost crippled by too much choice.
Yeah, and the trouble is, where they have too much equipment, they lose the progressional route, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to change what they're doing all the time. Now, people don't want that. They don't necessarily want to keep changing what they're doing. They just want to see improvements. And I also think that if you work the basics well, there's no need to kind of bung all the kit in. And I think that if you look at outdoor training and boot camp type training, that should be where people should learn their apprenticeship, because you can't have all the equipment out there.
Yeah.
And if you get used to working and getting a safe, effective workout with minimal equipment, then when you come into a sports center or a gym or a studio where you've got some stuff, you can go, now I know what I can do and be effective. But the key to success is planning. It's kind of planning what you want to do. If you don't plan it, then you're stuffed.
Yeah.
And you kind of go into centers where they do lunchtime circuits. If you go in there early, you sit there and watch, and the instructor's got his list of cards out and he's looking at you going, no, yes, no. There's no planning taking place. No, it should be, this circuit is part of a so many weeks planned out workout. And I'm going to do a chunk of training, and this is going to be my progression. Okay, people are going to join in halfway through, but I'm going to have my early stage progressions as regressions there. So they can do 2 or 3 circuits running in one circuit.
And that's something we teach. We do the 2-day circuit course still, and it's something that what you've just described is the fundamental to the 2 days. And one of the questions we get asked by learners all the time is how do I plan a circuit? And it's having that realization that a circuit isn't just a standalone circuit, and then there's say 8 weeks of these standalone circuits back to back. They form a progressive circuit where exercises are either regressed or progressed to meet the ability of that particular group of people at the time. And the biggest thing we hear is how do I plan for that? Do you have any tips on breaking that down?
It's like they would plan their 12-week program. You know, you've got to say, I have a goal at the end of this session that I'm going to do. What is that goal? I've got 10, 15, 20 people. They'll all have different goals. But at the end of the day, you're saying, well, my goal is a level of improvement in the muscle strength, the muscular endurance, the aerobic ability. It might be looking at everyday life for them. And saying, well, where is it that most people are weak on? A lot of people are weak in their quads and glutes, definitely. A lot of people are weak on their chest. Massive amount of people are weak on their back. So if I include those, it's going to strengthen those up. Now, the thing is, they might have an individual goal for coming to the circuit, but they can achieve their individual goals if they go and do other stuff in the gym. But generally, we've got to say, how many days a week am I going to run this circuit? And most gyms, if you look at them, there's once a week.
Which comes back to frequency, intensity, time and type, which is one of the overarching principles for all courses, including the Pilates and yoga world, have to do principles.
Absolutely. And if you then look at ACSM guidelines for muscular fitness, you're looking at 2 to 3 times a week. If you're looking at the guidelines for aerobic fitness, it's got to be 3 to 5 times a week. So you've then got to say, if I'm only doing my circuit class once a week, am I achieving those minimum guidelines?
I've not got enough exposure in order to have specific adaptation.
Absolutely. Unless that person is doing other stuff. Now, there's so many people that go to the gym just to do their kind of circuit class, their Zumba class, or whatever class it is. They don't actually go into the main gym. They're not interested in that. And I don't think there are enough classes of this nature taking place.
Which would explain why so many end users can go to a circuit or a boot camp or a Zumba or body attack class and go there for weeks and weeks and months on end and not see a result come through. Even though they're training, they could have a great couple of sessions, but there's not enough exposure to muscular strength and endurance, or enough exposure to cardiovascular, or enough exposure to flexibility, the components of fitness, for a result to actually come through physically in the body.
Absolutely. The other thing also to it is why there's not a lot, and you know, the greater audience out there might say, no, we see loads happening, but personal trainers don't see circuit training as a modem of exercise that they can give. You know, when you look at small group training, the best way of performing a small group training activity is to do some kind of circuit training class.
Yeah, 100%.
So therefore, and it's something that a person can do anywhere. They can do it at the home. And with the rise of technology now and apps on phones, that people have written some pretty good programs. There's some pretty not so good programs, but they can use these programs to maintain their flow of activity. The other thing is that, you know, when you look at PT and you look at circuit training, that very rarely do you see a circuit training class having some kind of fitness assessment at the beginning at it to identify where are you now?
Yes.
What is your current state?
Yes.
Now,
yes.
in the Navy, we used to have a individual circuit,
Amazing.
which was the 3 T's. Teach the circuit, time the circuit, and then I forget what the third T is now. Bit musty. I'll come to me in a minute. But what you do is whatever exercises you're going to have, you test them in that. So it could be a workout in itself. So you say, here you're going to do for 1 minute, see how many exercises, how many repetitions of that exercise you can do. What that person then has is the start of their goal set. So if at the beginning they can only do 5 3/4 press-ups, their goal might be, I want to, by the end of this period, do 5 4 press-ups. So it gives them a goal to actually turn up and try and do that. And then it helps the trainer to be able to progress it through by they've got. And then again, every so often, I heard at the weekend someone say to me that their personal trainer never reviews their progress. And I said, well, why not? Because the attitude is that a PT and a client's not going to pay for a session. And I said, well, why do I have to maybe give it to them free? So it's a means of giving back to actually go forward.
Exactly.
You want to see if your client's progressing.
We hear that quite a lot, actually, Bob, is from a lot of learners is saying they don't, and I think it comes down to they don't feel confident or value that what I class as a body MOT. They'd rather crack on and get on with the exercise because the belief is that that's what the client is there for. And they don't value that sit down, what I class as like a head psychology session or a body MOT testing, whether it be body measurements of height, weight, waist circumference, all the way through to a fitness test, a Cooper run test, for example. They don't value that in itself is still exercise. And if I'm going to actually position it as it's more important to do that than just crack on with exercise. Because if you don't do that, the exercise is just guessing.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know if you got there?
Completely.
So I know where I'm going and I know I'm getting there because I started off with the number 5 and I'm now on the number 10. So there must have been some improvement. One
of the things, as you know, I used to run the boot camp down here in Plymouth called the 5 a.m. Club. And, across the 3 years, there was literally hundreds of guys. We'd have, anywhere between 10 or 12 people per session, all the way up to 40, 50, 60, which were just crazy, crazy times. But once a month, guaranteed, we would do 5 exercises. And like you say, the majority of the lads were there for weight loss. So I knew I had to force some kind of calorie deficit. But overarching that, there was some other global goals, like you say, of being fit for purpose, fit for life, fit for their job. And there would be certain muscles that I knew were tighter and weaker. And like you say, the quads weren't strong enough, the glutes, the chest. And so that we would do 5 exercises for a minute each, and they'd record their score. So how many star jumps can you do in a minute? And they would race each other, literally race and pace each other. How many press ups can you do in a minute? How many squats can you do in a minute? How many sit ups can you do in a minute? And then they would put that inside a closed Facebook group. And then 4 weeks later, they would go back through, search for that post, and measure, manage, and monitor based on last month. And you could clearly see that if we were improving those scores as a goal, as a group, then all of our other goals of weight loss, fat loss, toning came as part of that daily hustle towards how do I improve my press up score? How do I improve my squat score?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it becomes, it's a kind of quantifiable measurement, where sometimes the adage of losing weight is not quantifiable, because what do you mean losing weight? There's a good chance you might put on weight. So therefore it's a conflict of what you actually want. It's being specific in saying, well, I want to lose fat, or maybe they want to lose lean tissue. You just don't know. But it's very difficult, for them to quantify.
But 90% of the time, maybe more, I don't want to put a percentage on that. Those goals, which kind of aren't goals, are byproducts of hunting down a quantifiable score. How many star jumps can I do? They're byproducts of it, because you're not going to get faster, stronger, fitter, and meaner in a press up score or star jump score unless you turn up, which is frequency. Right. And if each session is logically progressed, or each week is logically progressed, there's my intensity. Now I can change up exercises, which is my type of exercise, and therefore the exposure is time, and comes back to fit.
Of course it does, all the time. And any session that's being planned, that's what it should be done. And it's keeping it simple and not worrying about how much equipment I've got, not worrying about, I need to put this piece of equipment, I need to put that. You don't need it, because unless you're working in a center, and it answers one of the questions one of your colleagues mentioned, was you want minimal equipment. You want to use just body weight, and you want to use what's around you in the facility, because a client or a group of people might only have an hour's maximum. Let's put it in reality. You've only got an hour's booking in that particular facility. So therefore, you've got to say, how long is it going to take me if I go in after the yoga or the Zumba class to set up all this equipment? That's eaten into my time, whereby if I haven't got to worry about equipment, I've already planned it. I've got my station cards. I put them down. A few mats doesn't take long to put down. I'm ready to go. The clients get maximum benefit, maximum time doing the exercise, and you're not cutting things short purely and simply because you've got to clear all that weight stuff away for the next session to come in.
And it leads to a huge element of intrigue and excitement and fun, because from my experience, when the circuit is laid out and there's minimal equipment, the clients walk in and they're like, what is about to happen? They know they're going to work hard, but it comes down to my energy as the instructor, my creativity and imagination. And now they're left somewhat guessing, which keeps them engaged for the whole session, which means their likelihood of them coming back and adherence and retention goes up. Because the moment you see loads of equipment, they're like, we're going to do battle ropes, we're going to do power bags, we've got med balls, slam balls. It's like they know what's to come.
Yeah, and also it massively reduces any risks of injury to the person doing the exercise, but also the other people, because you've got all this kit rolling around. And when people get into the circuits, they don't worry about effectively, safely deadlifting the dumbbells down and making sure they're crossed. They'll just put them down and move on. However much you kind of ingest it into them, they will do that. So therefore, you make your circuit very risky, and you have to think about things like that.
One of the things you mentioned a few minutes ago was you've got this logically progressed, say 6 or 8 week, 12-week circuit. And in an ideal world, you would have a group starting week 1, day 1, and you would take them all up through it. How would you work, or how would you deal with or cope with, say, new people sporadically dropping in in say week 5 or 6? How would you structure that as a setup for
Well,
you as an instructor?
any instructor that's laying out a class, the first thing they should look at is, okay, I've got my base exercise. What I want to do now is I need to look at what's an exercise below that, depending on what exercise is there. So say it's the push-up, the press-up.
Yeah.
So what I'd need to look at is, okay, what's below the push-up? Maybe an inclined push-up, or maybe even a 3/4 push-up.
Yeah.
So I would really then think about, okay, I've started on, for argument's sake, the 3/4 push-up. I progressed onto the incline push-up. I progressed onto the wall push-up. So by the time I'm on the full push-up, the other 2 will still be in the class.
Yes.
So if someone comes in at that level, they tie in with the person that's going round, and that person will say, that's your exercise. This is my exercise. But obviously you as the instructor would have taught them how to do it. So realistically, the regular exercise becomes the motivator within the group taking that person round.
Yeah.
But they've got their exercises. Now, that's not to say that they won't say, do you know what, I fancy the next one up. Okay, as long as it's safe for you, but if you can't do it, go back down. So it's a question of, if you're going to run a workout circuit, then you're running 2 or 3 circuits. So anyone can jump in because they then have their exercise they can do.
Which is the beauty of having the basics, such as the body weight stuff, as the primary exercises, because they're easy to regress and progress. And the progressions out of the press up is now to make it, say, more unstable, or to then place that onto a suspension kit where you can bring kit in and make it a bit more funky, a bit more sexy. But if you start at the kit.
Yeah, but there's another way you can do it, is identifying the planes of movement and identifying, well, okay, I'm doing the press up through a plane of movement. Okay, how can I include maybe a transitional phase in it? A transverse plane. How can I put a sagittal plane in there? How can I put a frontal plane? What is the basic movement? Can I add a rotation to the press up? Can I do some kind of frontal adduction, abduction in it? There's all these ways of adding to that by looking at planes of movement. And then if you think about you doing that, you're doing some functional type of movements for the client that will help in everyday life, but still not necessarily putting loads of equipment in there.
And that comes back to, again, shameless plug here for anatomy and physiology, but understanding anatomy and physiology at the root of this, because at the end of the day, a circuit is a modality of training that adapts the body. And ultimately, we're trying to take a client from week 1, where their goal is, that's their current status, to say week 12, which will be their new status in 12 weeks' time. But what do I need to challenge in order to adapt anatomically and physiologically? And it's only that's only brought about by the circuit in challenging the nervous system, the skeletal system, the muscular system, the heart and circulatory system. And it without underpinning it and knowing that knowledge of the body in motion, of planes of movement and the axis of rotation, whatever, you can't plan an effective circuit.
No. And it's also making sure that when you look at your circuit and say, is it functional? Am I doing stuff that actually that client can use in their everyday life? Can they use this tomorrow? So we often do squats and deadlifts in circuit, but why not make it bilateral? Because more people are likely to lift up a suitcase or a bag or something with one arm rather than 2 arms.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's kind of imagining, okay, I've basically got my squat, my deadlifting in there. I'm quite happy with that. Now I'm going to kind of progress it now by just making it bilateral, so that I'm just using one side at a time. But the only downside is that you've got to remember that you've got 2 sides and you must have 2 stations.
Completely.
And often I've done it. I've only put 1 station in there and forgot about the left-hand side because I went on the right side. Big lesson learned there.
Yeah, completely.
But you only improve by learning its lessons.
Yeah, and that's a really good point actually for the listeners, is you only learn and build more confidence by actually doing it. And it's okay to mess up. It's okay to get things wrong, because I see so many newly qualified or trainee fit pros go, I'm not confident. of course you're not confident. You've never tried it before. You've never got it wrong before. And, however cheesy it sounds, I always, remind them of, a kid learning to ride a bike. They get on the bike, they fall off. They get back on the bike, they fall off. They get back on the bike. And it's not until they've fallen off 3 or 4 times, they realize that there's a confidence comes up. So it's okay to get things wrong.
Oh, absolutely. How do you learn? You only learn by getting it wrong. And with experience, you'll know your members, the people in the class, will soon tell you you've got it wrong. And that certainly comes around if you haven't sussed out your timings. Because if you haven't sussed out your timings and you're kind of fictitiously saying, we've got 40 seconds and someone's been on that press up for 1.5 minutes, they're going to let you know your timing's all out. So that's another important thing about the planning is how am I going to time this damn thing?
Yes.
You're not going to be constantly looking at your watch all the time. You've got to think of other ways that are more effective. If not, buy yourself a massive, great big sweeping clock that's got a beep on it, or get yourself an app that's got a timer on it, or something like that that will beep so everyone knows they're doing exactly the same repetitions in that time.
Otherwise, you're in a bit of a catch-22 because you either spend all your time as an instructor behind the clock, behind the timing device, which I remember, many years ago, that was me failing. And all the time I'm focusing on the time, I'm not focusing on the clients. And then I'm focusing all on the clients and not on the timing. And it's finding that nice balance. So what advice could you give somebody that, let's say they're brand new, they're trainee out the gates, fresh PT, and they're worried about planning and timing? What tips could you give somebody for that?
Well, as far as timing, I find one of the best ways for timing is to use one of the exercise stations as your timing.
Yeah.
And that works well unless you have an odd number. But then if you have an odd number, you try and keep those numbers even. We'll take that station out. Now, if you take that station out, then you've missed a valuable body part. But what you then can do is you can have it as a finisher at the end of your circuit.
Yes.
So you do the circuit, they're still working on that. But then people would say, yeah, but what happens if someone does a reps quicker than someone else? It will even itself out eventually.
Yes.
So there's all that kind of way. And I find that a really good way of working it out. Failing that, I have it on a tablet where you can get an interval timer. And the interval timer will give you a work and a rest time. And you will get a beep, but I have to put a loudspeaker to it so everyone can hear the beep. Yeah. But it kind of gives you a warning countdown, and then it will say change, and then you could use technology if you're struggling to give you that timing.
Yeah.
But I've always found that including a station, and normally I would make it a cardiovascular activity, but always test it yourself before doing it.
Yes.
Make sure that it gives you that time. Think about how much would it take the fastest, how long would it take the slowest, and then make it the slowest person's time.
Because at the end of the day, the fast person that's probably been in the boot camp or the circuit class for the longest is going to whiz through that, and that's okay. They're still going to feel challenged because they're going to have that competitive element inside CV where they can move faster compared to, say, a controlled resistance station.
Yeah.
But what we don't want to do is penalize the new person that, I don't know, let's say it was shuttles, for example, that's already hanging from the last 3 or 4 exercises and gets there, and suddenly they find themselves on this station for far too long, whilst the other person's now somewhat forced to do 90 seconds of press up. So it's finding that nice balance, isn't it, of not just the timing of that station, but the exercise. You're not bottlenecking somebody else up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a minimum of 30 seconds, to be honest with you, to get any relevant. 30 seconds to 45 seconds to a minute is what you're kind of looking for. So you've got to make up your mind. There's a famous old adage out there that you go as fast as the slowest person.
Yeah.
So rep range, you're kind of looking at that. And the other thing is that the person who is the quick person, the person who's quite fit, will always get their fitness.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
They will always do what it takes to get their workout. they're not necessarily the people you want to be worried about, because they turn up week in, week out. They know what they're going to do. Yes, you challenge them, because you make sure you do challenge them. You may give them a length of the sports hall run, whereas the other person might get only half the sports hall run. But when you look at the timing of it, because you've tested it, it's comparable. And that's important, so that one's not having to do more or less than the other. Because otherwise, they think, what's the point?
Completely, and they get demoralized and might not come back. But if we're mindful of the duration, the distance, one might go further than another. Ultimately, it comes back to, how am I challenging this person's energy systems?
Oh, absolutely, most definitely. And you know, there is a subtle change now in how people view circuit training, in as much as, because of the rise of CrossFit, then more and more people are deciding, I want to do CrossFit, not because of the sexy name, but it is a community that people join, but also it's a lot of the old-fashioned type circuit training modes.
Yes,
that's what they want.
Completely. What advice would you give a learner then that is going out and deploying some of their early circuit sessions? So they've recently passed, they're nervous about getting into that sports hall or studio or local church hall, or out in a car park in a park in their local area. They're super nervous. What advice would you give them as an instructor?
My first advice is go and do some circuit classes as a punter.
Yes.
Go there first. See what it feels. Watch the instructor. Listen to the instructors. Watch the other people. Chat to the other people. Take part in classes first. Then when you go out to do your own, keep it as simple as possible. Use your understanding through your courses of how to adjust intensity, how to adjust the type of activity to bring about a training effect. Start off with a smallish circuit, nothing complicated, maybe a satellite circuit where they just go round one station and another. They can deploy themselves around the circuit quite easy, just walking in the opposite direction, and start building up their enthusiasm, their passion for delivering this, and then start saying, right, I've got these exercises, I've got it. Now, instead of doing a satellite circuit, how can I do it? How can I change it? Maybe put them in partners and make one do one exercise, one do another exercise, then change around. Once they start improving their understanding, their confidence, then the world's their oyster.
Love it. Amazing. Why do you think that the general kind of, when you say the word circuit, a lot of learners, they seem to have this kind of fear that people don't like circuit training, but it has this connotation behind, it's going to be super hard, your head's going to be in the bucket, it's just going to be riddled with burpees. How do we help new personal trainers or new fitness professionals that are nervous about delivering circuits drop that belief of what a circuit is for the punter?
Quite straightforward. Change the name.
Nail on the head. Any suggestions? I called mine the 5 a.m. club. At the heart of it, it was a circuit session every morning at 5 o'clock, and I had the 6 a.m. club. And it was as simple as just changing
look at the latest name it's been called. HIIT.
HIIT training. It is a circuit.
That's all it is. And the other one, CrossFit. They're just circuit training, you know. So it's a question of, we always used to take the mick about legs, bums and tums.
At the end of the day, it's a circuit.
It's a circuit. You know, in an aerobic class, you've got the MS&E component. At the end of the day, the MS&E component is a circuit. You know, you can call it whatever you damn well like. And I think that's the key to success. I know that it still has this military kind of incline towards it, but that's no bad thing, because when you look at outdoor training and you look at an ex-military organization that invented, well, it didn't invent, that had a very successful life delivering outdoor training, and it was run by military people, they were banged out with individuals because they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't called circuit training. It was called something else. And I think that's the key to success. And if you look on gym timetables, you'll be hard pushed to find the word circuit, because I do know a lot of general managers do not like having circuit training in their centres. But if you come at it with a different name, you know, we're going to do metabolic training.
It's a circuit.
You know,
Exactly.
we're gonna do Sesame Street training.
I think you've literally just crushed so many beliefs and answered. Inside V in a circle for Parallel, I think probably about 30, 40 questions came in, and I'm going to say at least 25, 30% of them you've just answered in one comment.
It's simple, you know, but make the name of it a bit kind of sexy, if you like. That it's going to make people want to come to it.
Yes, completely.
You know, it's like we're Christmas now, and people are talking, and I see it online on blogs that I access, and they're talking about it's tinsel and turkey this weekend, and their workout is a tinsel and turkey workout.
Exactly.
Now, what does tinsel and turkey mean? But when you get there, there's a theme based on Christmas, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's a circuit.
It's a circuit. I really want to work on that in terms of a theme. One thing I've always been, having read the books, and it talked, you know, your books talk about this theme that comes through, is having the theme right from the get-go, not just saying the name of the marketing and getting people there, but right from the moment they walk in, and having a theme that runs through the warm-up, runs through the main component, and then runs through the cool-down. And from my experience, having this kind of pearl necklace or this theme that runs through it just creates even more of a buzz or a sense of community. Whereas I get this feeling that the warm up or the cool down is just something we have to do as opposed to it's part of the whole session. And if you don't get that first 3, 4, 5 minutes right in the warm up, the rest of the session can go to pot quite quickly.
Oh, absolutely. And I've certainly been challenged many times, certainly when I've done courses and in taking classes. It takes, my warm-ups are normally about 20 minutes long from start to finish. And towards the end of it, and I then say, okay, everybody stand up, have a few minutes, get yourself a drink. They said, well, that's a circuit. I said, no, that was the warm-up.
That was
the
warm-up.
On to the circuit. But it's kind of gradually building them up. So it figures that the warm-up is very dynamic. And it really depends on what you're doing in the workout. I spend a lot of time looking at joint stuff, making sure they're going through all the different planes of movement, different axes of movement. And also I bring a lot of partner work into it. So it's kind of trying to build a team activity within the workout. So they're working as a team.
Yeah.
Not only that, it brings about the fun element for them.
Yes.
And you hear the noise start raising because they're having a little bit of a giggle, they're having a bit of a blah, 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 blah. And then when we get onto the workout, they're really flashed up for it.
Yeah.
You know, and what brought this out to me is when you kind of think of professional athletes, they're spending just to run maybe two laps of a running track. They could be spending up to 45 minutes warming up for it.
Exactly.
So we should be taking a leaf out of their book and looking at how long, not just a 5-minute roll your arms around, do some rotations, right, let's go into it. But it should be planned. That means that your workout's going to be reduced. But if you've done your warm-up successfully, it's an integral part of your workout. It kind of blends into it.
Yes. So one of the things that obviously you taught me was, you know, if I had a 45-minute session, I almost break that down into 8 or 9 5-minute rounds. But the first 3-4 rounds, which is the first 15 to 20 minutes, gradually build up in intensity. And it's not until we reach kind of the 4th or the 5th round, close to, you know, minute 20 to 25, where suddenly we ramp up and now we can get into the nitty gritty of the main workout. Yeah,
definitely. You know, it's all a gradual progression to that. This is it, the crescendo. It's like anything you do, it has this kind of gradual build up and you get to the height and then it gradually cools it down. But you're within a training zone and you're within an area where that person is being challenged at maybe a lower level of overload, but they're being challenged all the way through. But
as opposed to getting in and giving a token 5-minute warm up and then going straight into a hit session. What the connotation I have for that is going almost like straight into a Tabata circuit.
Absolutely, it's
and understanding why the punt of a client is hanging out their arse and not coming back.
I mean, it comes back to your theory again. If they understand their energy systems, we've got to take time for those energy systems and the muscle fiber types to actually say, okay, this is not that intense. I don't need to use that muscle fiber type or that energy system. Okay, switch to another one. That's lovely. I don't need that one. Here we go. I'm in the one I want, knowing that I can peek back into whichever one I want afterwards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when we're looking at circuit training, we look at infall training.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all it is, isn't it? It's a period of work to rest ratio and how you manage that as an instructor. When you are managing, isn't it, as a coach and instructor, what advice or tips could you give around kind of where to stand and how to project your voice? And, I've met some amazing circuit instructors that are true introverts at heart and are very quiet and in themselves day to day, but when they get inside a circuit, they have this amazing ability to just shine. Tell us more. How can somebody that is really nervous kind of go, well, even though that's me day to day, where do I stand? How do I project my voice? How do I control this work to rest ratio and get the most out of a client?
Well, one of the first things I feel is they've got to have passion for what they're doing. Yes. And if they've got passion for what they're doing and circuit training becomes one of their passions, they want to help people, their persona will change within that circuit training session.
Yeah.
Another thing that I kind of feel is that don't take yourself too seriously when you're in that circuit workout, because people aren't really interested in you. They're interested in what they're doing. So don't think, leave your ego at the door, but take your passion with you and don't take yourself too seriously. Make sure it's nice to do sound checks. Can everybody hear me? You don't need to shout unless you've got an aerobics class next door, then you might need to elevate your voice. There's no need for a microphone. I often see circuit teachers in there with microphones. If you forget that you've got to elevate your voice, and if you shout, which they're doing, then it's distorted over the microphone.
Yes.
So it's a question of getting yourself to a position where you can see everyone, you can communicate with everyone, and a lot of times using the non-verbals as you're going round. But you should be coming out of that circuit class drained.
Yes.
At the end of the day, as if you've had a workout, because you're flashing around, looking here, looking there, having a chat to one person, maybe giving a bit of advice over there, maybe elevating your voice, but not shouting it.
You're not shouting. There's something we talk about on course is having a warrior tone or a sage tone and a lover tone. And coming up into a warrior tone is this, you're projecting your voice with confidence and being very assertive, but you're not shouting like a typical kind of drill sergeant, so to speak. You're communicating effectively still. Yeah,
I must admit, sometimes I do shout. It's just my background. But I mean, it's a question. The person that shouts too much, their voice will go.
Yeah, love it. I thought the sound had gone then, but amazing. Amazing.
And they start gagging because their vocal cords can't continue with all that volume. So they will find their level that's best. And remember, if they're in a big sports hall, the voice gets lost. If they're in a studio, it's nice and comfortable.
Yeah.
If they're outdoors, they've got lots of things to contend with. So the way they use their voice, they bring the group close to them, they talk to them, they send the group away. These are the skills of communication they want to learn. But never be fearful to make a mistake, learn from that mistake, evaluate it, reflect on it, and make a note for next time.
I even just a couple of 2015, 2016, I've delivered hundreds of circuits at this point. And I remember standing outside down at Plymouth Hoe. We were close to the beach. I had about 28, 30 guys in front of me. We'd done multiple sessions already, dozens and weeks of sessions. And anyway, this one particular session, I got to the end and I thought, why didn't that go as well as the last few weeks? And I realized that the sun was in their eyes, because the clocks had changed and the timing of the sunrise had come up. The sun was in their eyes, and I was also downwind of them, so they not only couldn't see me, but they couldn't hear me either. And still, I'm learning.
Classic beginner's mistake, sir.
And you're there, and that doesn't happen again, and you consider it. And the next session was absolutely buzzing because I was now facing the sun, so I was squinting, which was okay, but they could clearly see me. Yep. I could then use, my non-verbal body language to exaggerate certain bits, but they could hear me because of the wind was going towards them. So you only pick them up when you have a go and you mess up.
Absolutely, and it's good to have a go and mess up, and it's all right messing up, but it's at the end of the session making a note that I need to change this for the next time. But you'll also find that people in your group they'll come up and tell you. They'll identify. Many times I've had someone come up to me and said, "Bob, you're in my face too much," or they'll say, "Bob, will you please shut up?
Yeah,
let us get on with the exercise."
The punter gives you the best feedback.
Absolutely, and it doesn't hurt for that new person to do exactly as they've been taught on course, and have a little form. Say, guys, can you just put a few notes on this for me?
Yeah.
A suggestion box at the end, so that they can write, and you read them and then go, okay, they didn't like that. Okay.
I got into the habit
make
of
those changes.
I got into the habit of after every I used to do 5 a.m. every morning, Monday to Friday. And after every 5 a.m. club, I would leave it about 10 or 15 minutes. And then I would text or Facebook message at least 3 or 4 of the lads that I know either looked like they really enjoyed it, and maybe some of those that perhaps didn't look like they enjoyed it. And I would just pick 1 or 2 things out about that morning session and start up a conversation, and they'd soon give me some feedback. But I did that every day, which I think only made it a better service in time. And it comes back to one of the reasons why at level 2 gym, after the circuit course or any qualification we teach, there's a self-evaluation.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you've got to appreciate us and your learners have to is that those people are not there for you.
Yes.
You're there for them. So
yes.
What you've got to do, if you've got to maintain retention in your class, you've got to give them what they want.
Yes.
Now, yes, you can't please everyone. Well, yes, you can. By looking at what they've done in the circuit class, you can please everyone by making sure you make the necessary adjustments so everyone gets an enjoyment of being in that class.
Exactly. And I think if I encourage everybody to go back and listen to this again. We've elegantly, I think, dropped so many learner questions in today and had it answered.
Yeah.
But one of the things I hear so often is I've started a circuit class and had good numbers, and then over time my numbers have dropped, and they're getting 1s, 2s, 4, 5, 6 people turn up compared to when it used to be 10 plus. And I think if you go back over this podcast, this FitPro session, and just implement 1 or 2 things, and then a couple of weeks later implement a couple more things, you'll soon find your numbers pick up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're inevitably going to get drop-offs. That is an understanding thing, that people have busy lives and they might drop off. But the important thing, if someone drops off, do they come back? If that person doesn't come back, you've got to look at yourself and say, why isn't it? And maybe search out the problems for it. But yeah, if you are creative, if you're a listener, if you're someone that makes your sessions fun, that makes someone wants to come back to you each week, and you're, did I say a good listener? Yeah, I think I did. A good motivator as an instructor, then you should have a successful class. But don't get too twitched if people do drop off, because they have busy lives. It's when they come back, you can kind of go, yes, they've come back.
And also, we can't people please everybody. You're not going to be liked by everybody. And actually, in order to have a busy class, I had to go after a particular type of person and, for a better word, really appeal to them, but also piss some people off, if that makes sense.
I can go with that. Yeah.
And by doing that,
I attracted a particular type of person and crowd.
Yeah.
So,
Which often happens. People have who they like to go with, and you might get a couple of instructors, all similar, but you'll find they will pick the instructor they want to go with because they can associate with that person, or they talk some good stuff when they're not working out or during the workout, and they can associate with what they're doing. But that's perfectly okay. But it's up to the person that's taken the class, whether it be in a gym group, whether it be an independent circuit where they're hiring their own hall. Have they done their research as far as who their kind of target group is and what they're going to do, remembering the time that they're doing it. Also remember that summer and winter are totally different, and if you've got a class at 7:30 at night, are people, when it's freezing cold out there pouring with rain, you've got to expect that maybe they won't come along.
Exactly.
These are the things.
Oddly though, the last 2 winters, I stayed outside the whole winter for the boot camp, and we had snow, lightning, all hail, and again, it's just making it fun and going, do you know what? It might be snowing, and it might be 5 o'clock in the morning, but part of our main workout, we will be doing snow angels.
Yes.
And
this is it.
They loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. If you make it a fun element, and then, if you work on a program, and then towards the end of the program, you have some fun and games, but still make it a circuit. I always like to think of that program, it's a knockout. And you kind of say, well, I'm going to do some circuit type activities, but I'm going to make them fun. I'm going to put people in the team, and the whole team have got to get a certain number of repetitions in order to score. Whoever gets the most repetitions in the team, they win that particular game. And you make it a little bit fun, and people want to do that.
We generally remember the last thing we've done. So if the last part of that circuit was great fun, big excitement, big team play, big morale booster, I knew that's what they would finish on, and it was great.
It's like looking at a periodized program. At the end, you have a period of transition. So what you then is, when you've done that, this is our period of transition, and then we start a new activity. So we're doing something totally different. Still a workout, but it's a bit more fun. You can turn up in fancy dress. It might be in a circuit in a swimming pool. It might be a circuit on the running track. It might be, but it's something totally different.
And even in a one session, I always used to think, for between minute 30 and kind of 35, that was my peak intensities. But I don't want to leave them feeling that that's their last memory of that session. So that even in the session, the last 5-10 minutes were always packed full of fun. At a lower intensity, because now they're leaving the session like they're not just a smile on the face, but an intensity whereby they feel invigorated and not partially destroyed from high intensities.
Well, they always used to be the final component of any class used to be an awakener. So you've done your cool down, your cool down stretch, and then you did an awakener. It doesn't seem to happen at the moment, but that awakener could be the last thing they do. And if you have maybe some relay games or something with a ball, just something that's different, a little bit of fun that makes people laugh, and they forget what they've just done, and they go away and they go, we enjoyed that. You've cracked it.
Job done. I got a couple more questions, Bob, and a couple around the books, and then 2 more final questions.
Fine.
But you've written 2 books. I've got them in front of me: The Complete Guide to Circuit Training, and then the advanced one. Obviously, you're incredibly passionate, and although you deliver and teach on and assess on a number of courses, I think, for me, you're known as the circuit person. What was it that? What can people expect when they get the books?
Well, the authors, A&C Black, used to write the very thin books, Know the Game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember them. They were very thin, about that long, about that wide, and they were written for people. If you wanted to go and do badminton, you'd pick this book up, and it will tell you the rules of badminton. It will tell you how to roll the racket. It will tell you how the game is played, and it will tell you all stuff about it. So they're not written for coaches. They're written for people who are interested in wanting to start to play badminton. So that's the first thing. What they then decided was we want a set, and we're going to bring out a bigger book called the Complete Guide series. And I'm sure your listeners have seen Complete Guide. You've probably advertised them on your courses because they're really good books.
Yeah.
They're written for everyday people who are interested in that subject matter. So the Complete Guide for Circuit Training, it's designed that anyone can go into the shop, pick it up, open it up, and actually read it, and they'll get something out of it that they can train from home. They can train anywhere they want, but also it's ideal for instructors because it can give them an interest in, from start to a certain level, becoming a circuit training teacher or someone who enjoys that particular activity. So ASC Black write these books specifically for it. The other thing that they ask us to do is align it to the current level 2, level 3, level 4 qualifications.
Yes.
So the Complete Guide to Circuit Training, which was the first one, is aligned really to this level 2 circuit training instructor. The Advanced Circuit Training was aligned to the level 3 theory, but also to the outdoor fitness, as well as kind of looking at advanced or different off-the-wall type of training regimes, like your battling ropes, your kettlebells, your sandbags, and your rubber tires, things like that.
And what it does incredibly well is constantly refer to the principles of training, the underpinning foundations that make the circuit safe and effective, but allows you in kind of layman's terms to understand logical progression of what to put where and why. So you've got a site, it's backed by science, it's backed by fact. It's not just go and do this because. Yes.
It has to do that. And I was very lucky in as much as I was asked to write it. I fell into it by someone who got me started in the civilian world. He was going to do it, and he asked me if I would do it, it was my specialization. And I had Debbie Lawrence, who was also the co-author on that book, and she is a writer anyway. So between us, we were able to get it at the right level to meet everything that someone who's interested in circuit training, they could take this book, read it, learn from it, and run from it. And incidentally, I was in a shop in Spain about 2003, and there was this book on the shelf, and I thought, I recognize that book. And it was my book translated into Spanish. And when I picked it up, I took it over to them, I'm going to buy this. And the bloke who was behind the desk, he was at Mercia University, and he said, we use that as our course book.
Amazing.
Which, wow. So it does its job. I'm very proud of it, and lots of feedback I've had from it of, yes, it's helped us with our course, and it's helped us as instructors. But the sad thing is, you are pretty unique as a company, as much as there's not many companies that are actually delivering the circuit module.
No, completely. I think
very few.
I don't know why that is. I just see a number of training providers that for some reason can't feel circuit training, as get a number of learners actively promoted to go and do it. And it's been a main thing for us over the years. I think because we value it, we really value it. Outside of, say, you've got level 2 gym, but ultimately, taking somebody into a gym, even as a personal trainer, the reality is most clients they have are going to be doing some form of circuit training. So whilst you might be qualified at level 3, having the circuit behind you, or the circuit training qualification, supercharges your understanding of all training systems, but the principles of training, which means you only go into work with your client, the end user, feel tons more confident, and the results start showing up. And that's ultimately what we're there for, is for us to provide a result to learners, but more so for the learners to provide results for their clients.
I think what it is I think that a lot of PT courses have a group assessment in it, which they perceive is covering the but it's a group assessment on a resistance exercise and on a CV machine. It's still not group exercise as teaching a group in a circuit environment. So that they don't get the amount of people booking onto their courses, so they don't run it. But I believe that if you provide it, they will turn up.
Yeah.
The other thing is a lot of people don't do it, I feel, and this is a personal view, is that it's too complicated. It's too much work. It's far easier to just go into a gym, put someone on a treadmill, give them a beasting, take them off and put my hand out for my money than it is to sit down and plan a workout for 10, 15, 20 people.
But the reality is, if we just go on I remember day one of my gym course with you, Bob, you wrote KISS up on the board: keep it simple, stupid, and keep it simple, structured. And I mean, if we can do that now, it doesn't matter how complicated we could make it. If we can make it super simple, super structured, and super easy, then we've done a great job. I've said it on a few podcasts now. What I love about Parallel is we take complex topics and we describe them using Crayola pencils.
Yeah, no, it's the way ahead. It's good. Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why I feel proud to say to my students, go to Parallel Coaching, look at their videos. That will help you immensely. If you're finding something difficult, then do it, because unfortunately, when we're just teaching a weekend, we don't have time to do all the theory.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So they have to find areas, and you're right. The platforms that the providers give, they're not useful.
Yeah.
It's not only that, listening to a droning voice talking about something, you get bored with it after a while. But at least with Hayley on there, and that because she's quite vibrant and what have you, then you can kind of, okay, I'm excited now. I can get with it. So no, they're good.
It's quite funny, actually. We probably get an email every other day, at least every other day, and they say to Hayley, "Oh, I was listening to you whilst I was in the shower of a bath the other day," and then they find, because you can download everything to MP3 and MP4, so you can learn at points where you didn't realize you could learn. You don't necessarily have to be structured at the desk going, "I'm now learning." You can do it literally whenever, and it's really funny. We get a number of people, learners, weekly again, reply back and say, "I've passed. I got great marks. I got 93%, but I miss Hayley's voice."
Time for another course.
Yeah, and it's really funny because when they turn up to, say, for example, quite a few people turned up to our last circuit course, which was a couple of weeks ago, and they met Hayley for the first time, and they're almost starstruck of you're the person that was in you hate, oh my God. And they get selfies with her and everything, and Hayley's there it's just a boot camp for revision.
Nice.
If we can impact and again make learning fun, because this sounds really funny. We based the revision bootcamp on your circuit course to a degree, because there's a warm-up video which tells you what to do and how to do it, and then there's 8 modules that align with the syllabus for the 8 modules within A and P or whatever one you've got, and then we have a cool down videos.
Good.
So it's a circuit. So, by the time the end of it, you've had some fun, you've had some interaction, you've had some gameplay, you've got your cheat sheets. It's a boot camp. It literally, that's why we call it a boot camp.
And the awakener is a theory paper.
Exactly. But walking in confident, and I think that's the key. I love it. I got 2 final questions, Bob, because I appreciate your time. So, based on life to date and all your experiences, the time in the Navy, training up, literally, I can't imagine, it's got to be in the tens of thousands of people in the Navy, civilian life as well. What 3 things, tips, or advice would you give someone wanting to start out in fitness?
It's a good question. I don't know if I could answer it.
It's tough, right? It's tough.
It is. Be prepared for hard work.
Yeah.
Because it is hard work. Be prepared to work antisocial hours.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is antisocial hours. Be prepared to do the job for the love of the job and your passion for the job, not just for what you can put in your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have a passion for what you're doing. Because if you have a passion for what you're doing, ultimately there will be success. but don't have an ego with that passion, and
Yeah.
always be prepared to learn from other people.
Yeah. Because it's that passion that when times are tough, because it will be tough at times, it's that passion that gets you through the harder, darker times.
Yeah, and it's also, where do I go fishing? If my numbers are dropping down, where do I go fishing? You know, and go and talk to people, go in and visit other people's classes, you know, keep up to it. I still learn, even to this day, from other people about circuit training. And sometimes I think, I've never thought about that. I make a note of that. And I've got a book, and I just keep writing down exercises, writing down things that I've learned. Whether I'll ever use them again, I don't know. But the fact is,
they're up there. Yeah.
They're stored. Yeah.
Amazing. So final question then, Bob, probably a tougher question. And I ask everybody on the podcast this is, what's your definition of an outstanding coach?
Well, I think I mentioned it, and I made a few notes here on my thing. I kind of identified passion is one of my big things for it, because if you're passionate, then often it figures. Know your subjects matter. Have empathy with people you're working with, which will help you. If you don't have that empathy, you shouldn't be doing it. As I said, you're there for them, they're not there for you.
For you, yeah.
Have a decent knowledge base. That's a knowledge base of AMP, a knowledge base of exercises, and all of that type of stuff. Be a damn good listener, and be someone that can solve issues at the drop of a hat. So that certainly in a circuit class, things happen, and you've got to be able to solve that. And often you say, oh, you can't do it, I'll march on the spot. That's not solving the problem. It's kind of, there's an exercise there, I need to. So that's part of pre-planning. Make sure that, do this exercise very quickly. Solve issues. Make it fun. Make your workouts fun.
Yeah.
That's important, because people are giving up their time, and you're the person that's doing it.
And we only do things more. I only do things more if they're fun. If something's not fun, I don't do it. Fact.
No. And the thing is, as I've said before, don't take yourself too seriously, because people will appreciate that. But if you're standing there like a sergeant major and you're not interacting with the people when they come in, then it's not going to be a job for you. You've got to be there, interact with them, shake their hand, have a joke with them, and joke all the way through. I've been noted to recite Spike Milligan poetry during a circuit class. And people think, that was a bit random. Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
But, you know, they think about that, they remember it.
And little things like, you know, the fancy dress. You know, I did a charity event within the 5 a.m. club, and everybody turned up. I said, you could dress up as anything you like. And would you believe about best part of 40 plus lads turned up as hookers and prostitutes. And you know what?
In Union Street.
Completely. And it just amazed me that, you know, given anything you could dress up as, every lad turned up as a lady.
It says something about them, doesn't it?
And
or it says something about their instructor.
Yeah, maybe. I was dressed up as a cheerleader, in all fairness. But the fun element, you know, adding in random sessions that were still part of a logically progressed plan, but just adding a spice to it that
absolutely
is not unlike any other circuit class I've ever been to.
No, and I think it's if any of your learners are kind of looking at it, they want to go the whole hog, then brand themselves, you know, brand T-shirts with them, and kind of give them away. I mean, everyone's heard of Insanity, but people only did Insanity half the time to get the T-shirt.
Yeah, it was a community feel, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a question of make your class, make your session a community activity. Make it a community that people want to come to your class because they get together. Again, research from Dr. Bedford has identified people like to be part of a group.
Yeah.
And if you're part of a group in a circuit and you're regular, you've got your group, and people will socialize within there, and they will turn up because that's their social circle, and they'll enjoy it. And if they're getting a workout as well,
bonus.
From small acorns grows big trees.
Oh, what a quote. I remember. Yes. Bob, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on
pleasure.
the FitPro session. It's been great to catch up, and the amount of value and knowledge that you've dropped in this one I know is going to be absolutely loved by so many people. So a huge thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Neil Bergman.
And I'm Hayley Bergman. Over the last 10 years, we've helped thousands of fitness professionals to get qualified, learn with simplicity, and coach clients with confidence.
We're the first to say that learning and being a fit pro doesn't have to be hard work, and that with the right structure, support and resources, you can become a confident and knowledgeable fitness professional that is dedicated to more.
So how do you learn, qualify and kickstart as a fit pro? This is the Fit Pro Sessions podcast with Parallel Coaching.